streaming online at ncc.edu/WHPC.
Hey, this is DJ Searich, and you can listen to my show, The Jazz Cafe, Mondays at 11 a.m. Join me as I play classics from Roy Ayers, Grover Washington Jr., Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, and many others. So join me as I play the classics and soon-to-be classics on The Jazz Cafe on Mondays at 11 a.m. right here on WHPC 90.3 FM, the radio voice of Nassau Community College, now streaming on ncc.edu/WHPC.
12 noon, Motor Mouth Radio. All they do is talk about cars. Every day, they call each other on the phone, let's talk about cars. And then they get this one little hour of slab, but they're actually on the air sharing it with everyone else. You know, Ray Guarino and Chris Switzer, they're the hosts. They come in here about 11 o'clock. They're talking cars the first hour here. And then they go on the air at 12. They do a whole hour show there where you can call in with any questions or comments. And then at 1 o'clock, they continue the conversation in the parking lot. They talk more about cars. That's all they talk about is automobiles. I don't get it. That's why they do the show.
Motor Mouth Radio. Thursday and Sunday at 12 noon, right here on 90.3 WHPC.
We're back here on From the Press Box. I'm Rob Leonard with Tim Leonard. What are you doing, Tim? Put the headphones on. My brother takes his headphones off. It's radio. You keep them on.
Yeah.
Anyway, our special guest is Len Berman. Len, welcome to From the Press Box. How you doing?
Wow, two guys named Leonard, and my name's Leonard.
It's
a record for broadcasting?
It's
got to be.
Leo thing.
Yes.
Welcome aboard. Last week we were wondering, we were on Facebook, and a little thing on the side says Len Berman's Top 5. And I said, Tim, we should have Len Berman on. So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So what is Len Berman's Top 5? Let's start right there.
Well, I've been sending out a daily email to anybody who wants it. It's for free, and they just go to thatsports.com and sign up. And I give my daily musings on the world of sports, which I've been doing for the last several years. And I enjoy it. The people seem to like getting it, and they like to write back to me, and I read their emails and try to respond to them. So, every day is different. I mean, today had stories about the Detroit Red Wings giving tribute to Gordie Howe and the billboard they're erecting outside MetLife Stadium that says "Fire John Idzik."
They did raise $10,000 pretty quickly.
Yeah, they did. And the Maryland football players that refused to shake hands at the coin toss and got a 15-yard penalty. I mean, it's hard to get a 15-yard penalty at the coin toss, but Maryland got it against Penn State. Then the touching story of Lauren Hill, the young lady who's gravely ill, and they moved up the college basketball season so she could play for her college in Cincinnati, Mount St. Joseph, and of course she scored the first basket of the game, and the crowd went crazy. So stuff like that.
Is there any way this might be a video thing? Because it's obviously your website, but is there any way to make a video out of it since this is the internet?
Well, I've thought of that, but now what I do is I always put in links to videos. So rather than looking at me, you can look at the actual event. So, there's a link to firejohnidzik.com. There's a link to, the Red Wings fans. And there's a link to all the different stories that I talk about.
Let's talk about the Jets for a second. This is turning into this story where every time the Jets lose, the story gets bigger.
Well, I was just surprised. The telecast last night, they said the Heat would be on Rex Ryan, and I said, why? I mean, I don't think it's Rex Ryan's fault that this team is so miserable. I mean, you start with the general manager. Actually, you start with the owner of the team. Any organization starts at the top.
Right.
And the Jets have serious flaws. And you can blame Rex Ryan all you want, but, Vince Lombardi reincarnate couldn't have gotten the winning record out of these guys.
Yeah, see, Len agrees with me. You have to have players. Any coach needs to have players. And the Jets are woefully lacking in players.
Well, they are. They knew going into the season they had no defensive secondary. Well, how do you play professional football in 2014 without a secondary? I mean, that's just patently absurd.
Exactly.
They just get carved up left and right.
Exactly. I'm actually frightened to think about that game that they have coming up against the Steelers because Roethlisberger threw 6 touchdowns again yesterday.
I just got an email from somebody that told me the spread is 5.5 points. Is that true?
No.
That can't be true, right?
Oh, wait. Actually, I'm looking at the post right now. I just happen to have that page. Yeah. It says the line, the Jets are +3.
What?
That's absurd.
That can't be right.
Len, we need to go to Vegas. We need to go to Vegas.
3 touchdowns, maybe?
It says +3, and the over-under is 43. I think the Steelers will score that by themselves.
By halftime.
Yeah.
I don't bet, but I would on that.
Yeah, same here. This could be a windfall for a lot of I don't know, Jet fans who know better.
Well, you never know in sports. I mean, there was no way the Knicks were going to go into Cleveland and win that game.
That's true.
And look at the Miami Heat. They're the only 3-0 team in the conference. LeBron, who? So you just never know in sports. I mean, who? Raise your hands among your audience. So who out there said the best record at the halfway mark in the NFL would be the Arizona Cardinals? Go ahead.
That's
Raise
another
your
one,
hand.
yeah. I mean, and people are still discounting them and saying, oh, well, they're not for real. They're not for real. Hey, they're 7-1.
Hey, they may become. Now, here's your trivia. They may become the first team ever to have home field to the Super Bowl.
That's true. Len, recently you wrote a little article on sideline reporters on your website.
Yep.
I totally agree with you. What's the history?
Wait. Let's tell people what he said in the article.
I was getting that to it. Basically, Len is saying that sideline reporters really aren't that important to the game.
They're not.
They're a waste of time.
And even Len, who was a sideline reporter at one point for some games and some seasons, even he admits it's kind of crappy.
It's a fraud in the NFL. Whenever you hear a sideline reporter give an injury report,
right,
that reporter has zero insight. What happens is the rule in the National Football League is that the press box, the public relations man for the team, gets the official report. So-and-so has a separated shoulder. He then calls the TV truck and tells the producer that Joe Smith has a separated shoulder. Then the producer tells the sideline reporter in his IFB in his ear, so-and-so. It's an elaborate game of telephone. And the sideline reporter is the last to know, and it certainly isn't giving a scoop. He's not allowed to find nowadays it's she. Right now, if they wanted to hire me as a sideline reporter, they wouldn't because I'm not young or blonde enough.
That's true.
And you don't shave your legs.
At least 90% of the sideline reporters are female these days.
Yeah. So I mean, it's basically eye candy. Most of the time, it is a waste of time. Those interviews going on or off are always ridiculous and never have any depth to them. It's just you don't need them. Listen, I've said this before. I've even written this. I wish I could watch a sports event without the announcers. Now, I know this is blasphemy to come from an announcer. I wish you could just have in this technology, why can't you have an audio channel that just gives you the crowd noise from the stands and the
SAP channel? They can do the SAP channel. That's a great idea.
My goodness, why can't you in this technology? You're telling me you can't have a channel? Well, the reason they don't do it is because the networks want to slip in those promos for The Good Wife coming up tonight at 9:30 or really at 10:10 when they figure the delays.
By the time it actually starts.
Yeah.
But that's why they have football. That's how Fox established themselves as a network. They got football.
That's true.
CBS.
They want promos, but I would love, and often, I shouldn't say this, but oftentimes I'll watch sports events with the sound down because I just don't, personally, I don't want to hear all the blather. I like to watch and kind of and I know a young lady who's a huge, huge Giants fan. She's not a young lady; she's a mother of a couple of grown kids. She never listens to the audio. She'll watch it in silence.
Really?
She wants to make her own decision.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're a knowledgeable fan, why not do that and form your own opinions and your own judgments, and not let what you're hearing in the booth? Because this brings it around to a pet peeve of mine is a lot of the broadcasters on a game they'll show a replay of a play, and then they'll talk about what they think they saw in the original play, and they'll completely ignore what the replay is showing them, which,
I agree with that.
which
and also,
oftentimes is completely different from what they're saying.
And how many times have you looked at a game, you see something out of the corner of your eye, and they totally ignore it or never refer to it on the broadcast? They've got 39,000 cameras on the game.
Oh, it happens to me every time I watch something.
So you see something. I liked Phil Simms the other day. He thought there was a block in the back, and at first blush, and they went back and found the tape, and they showed it, and it was marginal, and they brought in the referee on the conference call, and he thought it was marginal, but at least they discussed it. It's something that the viewers might have seen out of the corner of their eye, and at least Simms referred to it.
Right, Phil is good with that because Phil isn't afraid to say, all right, you know what I thought I saw isn't what I saw.
Oh, he's great at that.
So,
say I was wrong.
But so many of them don't even.
No,
they
if you're wrong, you're wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
I've called some games and I've made mistakes, but you got to say, hey, I thought it was this and it was that.
Yeah.
And that's all. You move on.
Yeah, and it happens. I mean, nobody's perfect calling games.
Very tough. I've heard this said before, and I heard it said recently It's impossible to call a perfect football game.
No, I mean, there's just too much going on. It's too fast. There's too many big bodies and the little football where it might be somewhere else instead of where you're looking.
Listen, there was a huge play in the San Francisco game yesterday with the Rams. Did Kaepernick fumble or didn't he? And all the replays in the world couldn't tell you whether or not he fumbled it before it got to the end zone. And it was the game-deciding play, even with replay and everything.
We're talking with Len Berman. And, Len, one of the things you're famous for is the term and the packaging of spanning the world.
Spanning the world.
How did that happen? How did that start? And it's taken over, really. It's led you places maybe you weren't sure you were going.
No, it's a great little bit. I'm still doing it on the Today Show. Next time I'll be on is the day after Thanksgiving.
Okay, great.
And it actually began as a goof. I was working at Channel 2 100 years ago on the weekends, and we got this clip in from a county fair in the Midwest, and the announcer, the horses were charging to the finish line. It was a harness race. Horse in first place before he gets to the finish line turns around and bites the horse in second place in the neck. and the guy announcing it at the county fair says, "Hey, that's the damnedest thing I've ever seen." Well, my friend, my producer and I were brought up in New York City on stickball and hoops. We never heard of this, but apparently it's something that's real in horse racing called savaging that I never heard of.
Oh, wow.
So we took this highlight and we decided we couldn't go on the 11 o'clock news that night and say Yankees win, Mets lose, and horse in first place bit the crap out of the horse in second. So we decided to call it something, because that's another pet peeve of mine. You always have to call it something in TV.
Right.
You have to call it a news team investigation, or you have to call it a team effort, whatever. Oh, my favorite one is New at 11. Well, really? I mean, I tuned in for old stuff. You're going to tell me something new at 11, they call it? So anyway, you have to call it something. So as a joke, we decided to call it Spanning the World. And the reason we called it that was because ABC's Wide World of Sports with Jim McKay, their famous opening was Spanning the Globe to bring you the infinite variety of sport. So it was our little inside joke that, they span the globe, so we're going to span something else. So we span the world. So that's how it started, as one highlight. Then when I went over to NBC, I made it a monthly compilation of all the goofy stuff in the month.
Where did you come up with the whole intro and the graphic and the chicken and that whole thing?
Well, it's a rooster, by the way. Let's get our animals straight over there, huh?
Tim, come on.
Come on.
Sorry, city guy here too. So
you guys are too young, but they used to show newsreels in movie theaters back in the day.
Yeah, he's right. We are too young for that.
Even before my
no, but I do know,
my dad used to tell us about those.
I do know the music's from the Warner Pathé
Movie Tone News.
Movie Tone News. Well, not Movie Tone, Warner Pathé News.
And there was a rooster on that. And I love name dropping.
Please do.
Someone introduced me to Tom Hanks, and Hanks said to me, "Are you still doing that caca thing?" And I immediately knew what he was talking about. He was talking about the cock-a-doodle-doo with a rooster at the beginning of Spanning the World. And so I now refer to this as the caca thing that I do. Thank you, Tom Hanks. But anyway, what I did is I got the late, great Don Pardo, who was the NBC in-house announcer, to do the opening voiceover for me. It's Spanning the World, the voice of Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
And we honestly didn't know if we'd have a second month, so we ended it by saying, "Tune in next time, if there is a next time." I'm Don Pardo, and it just became a shtick.
Well, I'm glad it's continued, even since you've left Channel 4.
Yeah.
And I'm glad people. It's a great bit. I always liked it. It's always because you did it with a smile.
It's the whole idea is it's not just to find. Anybody can find bloopers, especially in this day and age. The key is really how you package it and how you write it, and how you refer to it. I mean, and a lot of the times I'll go on the Today Show, and even the Today Show anchors have seen the clips, because now all these morning shows show what they call as viral video, and a lot of these clips are viral video clips. A guy goes to take a picture of someone being interviewed, and he falls in a lake. I mean, just stuff that happens.
Or the newscaster the other day who was caught supposedly going to the bathroom.
Oh, I saw it. Do you believe that?
I can't believe that.
Let's switch to Joe Smith at the scene, and he's taking a whiz.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Hey, it happens. It's live, right?
It's live, exactly.
Len, I got a question for you. You started out doing the Big East basketball games. You went to Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
The Big East maybe isn't what it used to be.
Well, it's not. Well, of course, nothing is. I mean, but I don't want to be one of those old fogies who says it was better in the good old days.
But the Big East was better in the good old days.
Well, let me explain to you. When you have Georgetown, Syracuse, St. John's, Villanova, Pitt, Boston College, and Ewing is facing Mullen for 4 years, not just one and done.
Right.
That became rivalries. They became wars. Now the only thing